Welcome to the official podcast of Vienna Shadows, a secret society uncovering Vienna's hidden mysteries. Lean back and enjoy the show.
You know, usually when you sit down to prep a tabletop role-playing game, there is a certain comfort in the map, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like you draw the cavern, you place the monsters in the dungeon, and you just sort of know exactly where the boundaries of your world are. But today you are stepping into the shoes of a game master for Vienna Shadows. And the stack of sources we're looking at today just fundamentally breaks that comfort.
It really does. It shatters it completely.
Right. We have the rule book, a massive pile of developer notes, and the core module for a very specific, frankly, terrifying expansion of the game's lore. It's called the Vindobona Guide. So our mission for this deep dive is to, distill all this material into everything you need to run an unforgettable campaign where the city itself is the monster.
Yeah, because it completely flips the script on what the setting actually is. I mean, we're looking at a literal masterclass in layering history with cosmic horror. Because if we look at the surface of the game, right, it's the 1920s, you have the grand historicist architecture of the Vienna Ringstraße. It's basically acting as the gilded armor of this very fragile Austrian Republic. You've got coffee houses, jazz, the dawn of psychoanalysis. It feels civilized.
Very structured, very modern.
Exactly. But the game demands that the GM understands what lies beneath the pavement of the inner city. And that is Vindobona, a massive Roman military fortress and civilian settlement that once held 30,000 people right along the Danube frontier.
And to the history books, it's really all it is, right? Just a border garrison on the Limes, the edge of the empire. But the lore hidden in this guide reveals why it was built there in the first place. Because the name Vindobona comes from the Celtic words windo, meaning white, and bona, meaning base or foundation. So the white fort.
Right, the white fort.
But the soil was already ancient. The native Celts actually called it Vedunia, which means the forest stream.
Yeah, and the central premise of the expansion, what's fascinating here is that the Roman legions didn't just march into the Vienna Basin to build a fort to, keep out barbarian tribes.
Which is the standard historical narrative.
Right. But in the game, they constructed a giant geometric sigil of containment carved directly into the earth. The entire Roman settlement was a magical supermax prison designed to hold back a primordial entity slumbering beneath the Danube.
See, that concept alone is a total goldmine for a game master. You get to look at the city grid of Vienna and basically treat it like a massive ancient circuit board.
Oh, exactly. A circuit board is the perfect way to look at it.
Like every street, every ditch, every foundation was meticulously placed to keep this thing asleep.
Yeah.
And your players are just unknowingly buying coffee right on top of it.
Just walking their dogs over a cosmic lock.
Right. But if the city is the cage, how do you make the players feel the presence of the wardens who built it? Because looking through these notes, the spiritual foundation the Romans laid down here is definitely not your standard Mount Olympus affair.
No, not at all. You have to remember the Roman military machine was incredibly pragmatic. I mean, the standard Pantheon Jupiter on his throne, Apollo with his lyre, that works perfectly for civilizing a compliant Mediterranean province, right?
Sure.
But the deep frontiers were completely different. The dark, freezing edges of the known world required much grittier, darker mystery religions to fight back the primordial local entities. So the legions stationed here, like the Legio Ex Gemina, brought in these bizarre foreign cults.
So they didn't bring politicians to a knife fight. They brought brawlers.
That is a perfect way to put it. They brought brawlers. And the primary brawler here was Mithras. Mithraism was a highly secretive mystery cult that was incredibly popular among the legionaries, and they practiced exclusively in subterranean, completely windowless temples called Mithraea.
Which instantly establishes a wonderfully claustrophobic tone for a tabletop session. You're underground, no windows. And the guide mentions the core of this cult is the ritual of Taurobolium, which depicts Mithras slitting the throat of a massive bull. And the developer notes explicitly state that in the game, the quote-unquote bull is a metaphor for the cosmic boundary of reality itself.
Right. The ritual is actually a mechanism for siphoning cosmic energy. By slitting the bull's throat, they are temporarily breaking the rules of reality to gain power.
It's like, okay, imagine reality as a submarine plunging through the dark, crushing depths of the cosmos. Slitting the bull's throat is intentionally punching a hole in the hull of that submarine.
I love that analogy.
Right. You're letting in a concentrated beam of pure, unfiltered light from the outer suns to burn away whatever's lurking in the dark water.
Yeah.
You get the light, but you risk drowning the whole ship.
Exactly. And that mechanism is everywhere on the frontier in the setting. So Mithras provided the deep light, but they also brought in Jupiter Dolichamus to control the surface. Now, this isn't the toga-wearing Jupiter of Rome.
No, this guy is intense.
Yeah, this god originated in the Syrian town of Dolish. He represents this fusion of Roman authority and ancient Semitic weather magic. He's depicted as a bearded general standing on top of a trotting bull, wielding a double axe in one hand and a bundle of lightning bolts in the other.
Just a phenomenal image for a GM to describe to players who stumble into some forgotten cellar, right? A guy on a bull holding lightning.
And the auxiliary soldiers relied heavily on his specific brand of cosmic weather. They utilized his magic to summon blinding sulfur fogs and localized electrical discharges. They were literally scouring the Danube frontier of unclean forces using weaponized weather.
Wow.
And they needed it because the pre-Roman native spirits were violently hostile.
Right. The god calls them the nymphs of the forest stream.
Mm-hmm.
And historically, the Romans tried to play nice, I think. Like, the sources show altars built by centurions trying to placate these Celtic water spirits.
Yeah, historically. But the game's lore peels back that layer of historical diplomacy to reveal it was just a survival mechanism. Because these aren't beautiful maidens in the water. They are predatory, semi-aquatic extensions of what the guide calls the Danube Prince.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah, their entire purpose is to drag travelers down into the deep, dark waters to just feed the slumbering entity.
So we have an ancient, violently maintained magical containment grid. But how does that collide with the 1920s setting your players are actually exploring?
That's the kicker.
Right. The answer is post-war urban expansion. The city is building subways, they're expanding sewer lines, and in doing so, modern progress is accidentally breaching these 2,000-year-old seals.
Which naturally funnels the players toward 3 primary archaeological horror sites detailed in the module, along with the occult factions that are violently fighting over them in the shadows.
Let's start with the most heavily contested location, which is Bauernmark 1. So the city is doing cellar renovations near Stephansplatz, and they unearth this massive, anomalous structure. It's 450 square meters, plunging 5 meters into the earth, lined with thick, parallel stone corridors.
Yeah, and the Golden Robes are the first faction the players might encounter here. They operate as the high society elite of the occult underground. So they claim the structure is just a late Roman military treasury.
Just a bank.
Right, just a bank. Their strategy involves using modern city planning, specifically the old defensive ditch called the Graben- and Kärtnerstraße, to maintain a psychic boundary over the inner city. They intend to use this newly discovered Bauernmark cellar as a vault for their most volatile cosmic artifacts.
But then you have the rival faction, the Crimson Robes. And they are screaming that this is absolutely not a treasury. It is a carcer of the unspeakable, which is a specialized 4th century dungeon built to contain an extra-dimensional entity.
Yeah, and the architecture here is so specific that it has to be a prison. There is a solitary, narrow cellar window placed right next to a massive stone pillar. It was engineered to let in a single, precise beam of solar light during the solstice to keep the monster bound. But the records show that at the start of the 5th century, it was abruptly filled with burnt debris and bone fragments.
Like they were just tossing whatever they could find in there.
Exactly. The seal was cracking. The Roman wardens panicked and tried to plug the hole with literally whatever they had on hand.
Okay, I have to ask a logistical question here because a smart player at the table is absolutely going to ask you this. How do the Crimson Robes know the architectural intent of a 4th century dungeon? If they are a 1920s occult faction, where are they getting the blueprints?
Well, what's fascinating here is that this is one of the most inventive pieces of world building in the entire source book. The Crimson Robes consider themselves the archivists of the Limes. They are fanatically obsessed with Emperor Marcus Aurelius.
Right, the Stoic philosopher.
Yeah, who died of the plague right here in Vindobona in 180 AD.
Okay, I know his meditations, but how does a dead emperor give them blueprints?
So, the Crimson Robes believe that before his body was returned to Rome, his stoic mind, like his sheer philosophical willpower, was bound to the local limestone of the city foundation.
Wait, really?
Yeah, so they conduct these elaborate secret seances in the Roman ruins to literally extract lost history and Stoic philosophy directly from the stones. The memories of the earth itself act as their blueprints.
That is so incredibly evocative. Extracting memories from limestone, it perfectly contrasts with the sheer, visceral terror of the second major location, the simmering mass grave. So workers are digging a sports field in Hasenleitengasse, and they find a trench packed with over 150 skeletal remains of young, healthy Roman legionnaires from 92 AD.
And the terror here really relies on understanding Roman cultural taboos. During the reign of Emperor Domitian, the Romans strictly, exclusively practiced cremation. A mass burial in a trench was an absolute violation of their deepest religious protocols.
Yeah, you simply do not bury Roman soldiers like that unless something has gone catastrophically wrong.
Ex-
The module notes that the skeletons show massive trauma from heavy crushing weapons, but no traditional battle wounds. They were thrown into the dirt in extreme panic. So they were slaughtered by a sudden unnatural threat that was so terrifying, the survivors abandoned their religion, dumped the bodies, and just ran for their lives.
And naturally, this mass trauma site is the primary target for the third faction, the Black Robes. They are the nihilists of the setting, right? The architects of chaos. Their agenda is brutally simple. They want to excavate the grave, break the hasty seals the terrified Romans placed on the bones, and raise a mindless, necrotic Roman cohort to march down the Ringstraße and just tear the modern city apart.
It's the ultimate chaotic threat for the GM to hold over the players' heads.
Yeah.
Like, hey, there's a zombie legion under the sports field.
Yes, exactly.
And that leaves us with the third location, which is subtle but incredibly atmospheric. It's the ruins of the Hohermarkt. These are the ancient officer houses. And in the dead of winter, the ancient Roman floor heating systems, the hypocausts, will occasionally activate on their own, just pumping sickening sulfurous heat up through the floor of the modern museum above.
It's just brilliant environmental storytelling. It signals to the players that the machinery of the ancient world isn't dead, it's just idling.
Right. So we have the lore, the locations, the warring factions. But the rules have to actually support the setting. Let's look at how the guide translates this narrative dread into mechanical tension at the table.
Yeah, so Vienna Shadows uses a wonderfully brutal D6 roll-under engine for all of its encounters. It's fast, elegant, and explicitly designed to make the players feel outmatched. The base value for all attributes is a 3.
Just to clarify the stats for a second, strength is for resisting the crushing weight of Roman masonry or, fighting off a drowned legionnaire. Intellect is for deciphering Latin inscriptions or understanding those Mithraic star charts. Charisma covers controlling a panicked crowd or interrogating an occultist. And perception is for spotting the subtle alignments of cellar windows or hearing the low hum of the Limes containment grid.
Right. And to succeed at any of those tasks, a player rolls one 6-sided die, and they must roll lower than their attribute score.
Wait, I have to challenge this design choice. If the base attribute is a 3, and you have to roll under it, that means a player needs a 1 or a 2 to succeed.
Yes.
That's a fail rate of roughly 66% right out of the gate. Isn't that just punishing the players for trying to interact with the world?
Well, it is entirely intentional. The mathematical reality of the system forces the players to realize they are weak. If they just run in unprepared, they will fail. The system demands that they scavenge for advantages, forge alliances, and really use the environment. But more importantly, it makes room for the true star of the mechanics, which is the rule of 6.
Ah, yes. Because rolling a 6 in this game is devastating. It isn't just a failure, it triggers what the game calls a passion flare.
Yeah, because the players aren't just failing a physical task, they are interacting with an environment saturated in ancient, violent magic.
The way I read it, it turns the dice into a ticking time bomb on the table. Like imagine your mind as a radio, and rolling a 6 accidentally tunes it to the exact frequency of the ancient Roman Ide trapped in the soil.
Oh, that's good.
It flashes in your mind the smell of blood, the terror of the dark woods, the fanaticism of the cults, and the moment that happens, it instantly drains one sanity point.
So the environment fights back. But as the GM, you do have situational modifiers to balance the scales. You can grant an ancient blessing, which subtracts 1 from the die roll, making success much easier. A player might earn this by, say, carrying a stamped Roman brick from the Legio X, or by standing near an altar of Fortuna.
Or you can squeeze them with the sulfur fog, which adds 1 to the roll. This happens when the air gets thick with the breath of the ancient springs, clouding their perception and making that dreaded 6 even more likely. And to give the players a fighting chance, the guide provides fantastic reference tables for relics.
And the relics are fascinating because they offer power at a severe cost. It perfectly mirrors the Roman pragmatism we discussed earlier. You mentioned the stamped Legio X brick. It's this heavy terracotta artifact that buffs a player's strength against supernatural attacks, but it's incredibly cumbersome.
The double axe fragment is my favorite, actually. It's a rusted bronze piece of a Jupiter Dolichenes statue. A player can choose to literally shatter it to cast a localized bolt of lightning that deals a massive 1d6 health damage to everything in the room. But once it's gone, it's gone.
Right, a one-time nuke.
Yeah. Then there is the Mithraic Bull Dagger, an iron blade with a bull's head pommel. If you use it to kill a monster, it restores 2 sanity, but immediately drains 1 health.
It forces the players into the exact same mindset as the Legionnaires, you know? Bleed yourself to keep your mind intact. The system also gives the GM the Whispers table. These are random D6 environmental events to constantly keep the players on edge.
Right, so if the GM rolls a 1 or 2, it triggers the Legionary's Plague. A foul, warm draft sweeps through the corridor, and everyone has to make an intellect check or suffer mind fever, temporarily lowering their stats.
And a 3 or 4 might trigger the Ditch Shudder. The ancient Graben Trench literally ripples the modern asphalt, forcing a strength check to avoid taking physical damage from the shifting ground.
And a 5 or 6 unleashes the Eye of Mithras. A localized beam of golden cosmic light flares from a crack in the wall. The most perceptive player has to pass a sanity check or be blinded by the unfiltered truth of the cosmos for a full round. You are constantly bombarding the players with the reality that the 1920 city is just a fragile skin over a very active machine.
Exactly. Which brings us to the perfect synthesis of all these elements. The sample adventure provided in the module, called The Deepest Cellar. It's a masterclass in weaving the lore, the locations, the factions, and the mechanics into a single autumn evening.
Let's walk you through how this plays out at the table. So Act I starts with an anomaly. The players are called to the Roman Museum under the Hovermarkt by a frantic curator. That ancient hypocaust system is running, and the stone floors are practically burning their shoes.
Right. And in the thick, blinding steam, they are ambushed by water wraiths. Now, these are the spirit manifestations of the ancient Vedunia nymphs, but their bodies are composed entirely of boiling sulfur water. The GM hits them with the mechanics immediately. They need an intellect check to find the hidden Roman valve to shut off the steam, or a strength check to physically tear themselves out of the boiling grasp of these entities.
Once they survive the ambush, Act 2 shifts from survival to investigation and, really, a heist. The players trace the ancient steam pipes and realize they lead directly to the massive vault under Bauernmarkt 1. But the Golden Robes have already set up a fake construction barricade around the building to secure their treasury.
So the players have to slip past the high society cultists and descend into the echoing 5-meter-deep vault. And there it is. The narrow cellar window we talked about earlier, glowing with a sickly, unnatural yellow light. The GM calls for a perception check. If a playing rolls successfully, they notice that the stone column next to the window is covered in Thraic bull slitter sigils.
The architecture itself is a weapon, and that leads directly into Act 3, which is the Great Unsealing. Because the players aren't alone down there. The Crimson Robes have infiltrated the cellar, they're conducting a modern torabolium, they've bound a young worker to the stone column, and are preparing to slit his throat to shatter the window seal completely. And the environment is reacting violently to this. The stone walls are buckling. Above them, up on the street, the ground is literally sinking as the ancient riverbed tries to collapse into the chamber.
What makes this adventure design brilliant is that it doesn't force a single narrative ending. It provides the game master with 3 distinct open-ended resolutions based entirely on player agency.
Option 1 is to reseal the carcer. The players intervene, they fight the cultists, and must pass a difficult intellect check to physically realign that light channeling column, pushing the entity back before the ritual finishes. It's the classic hero route, but heavily dependent on surviving the dice.
Yeah, and option 2 happens if they fail, or, if they decide the Crimson Robes have a point. Unleash the storm. The ritual finishes, the window shatters, but instead of the monster escaping, the localized cosmic thunderstorm of Jupiter Dolichenes floods the first district. It completely destroys the Golden Robe's containment net and leaves the city in magical chaos.
And then there's option 3, the deliciously grim route. Claim the treasury. The players decide they don't want to risk their lives in a fight. They bribe the Crimson Cultists to halt the ritual and then negotiate a deal with the Golden Robes. They allow the vault to be converted into a localized portal anchor.
So good.
Right. The players gain access to immense cosmic energy for future campaigns, but at a severe permanent cost to their sanity.
It perfectly encapsulates the ethos of Vienna Shadows. There are no clean victories. You are just negotiating with different shades of darkness, trying to maintain the structural integrity of a 2,000-year-old magical padlock.
It truly is masterful. Taking the occult espionage of the 1920s, the trench coats, the jazz clubs, the secret societies, and layering it directly on top of this ancient geometric horror creates a setting that just feels endlessly deep. Well, Game Masters, we hope this deep dive into the Vindobona guide gives you plenty of ammunition to terrify your players next time you sit down at the table. Keep exploring, keep rolling those d6s, and most importantly, keep digging into your sources.
But before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder for your own campaigns. We've established that the Romans built an entire bustling city of 30,000 people solely to serve as a massive, intricate padlock for whatever lies beneath the Danube. So what happens when your players slowly start to realize that the true purpose of the 1920s urban expansion, the frantic digging of the subways, the pouring of the sewers, the millions of tons of modern concrete, isn't an accident that's breaking the seal? What if it is a subconscious, desperate attempt by humanity to build a second, thicker cage?
This concludes today's episode. Don't forget to rate and subscribe. Until next time, Vienna Shadows, signing off.